Hi, everyone. Welcome back post summer. This is September of 2020, and this is the Art of Business English, episode 131. And I'm Andrew Ambrosius, your host, and I'm again joined by one of my colleagues from South Africa, Loic, Loic, welcome, buddy. How are you?
Good, man. This is my Stoic outfit tonight.
Stoic outfit. Well, that's actually what we're going to be talking about, isn't it? So just to let everyone know, this is quite a very different episode from the typical ones that we host here on the Art of Business English. But we're going to be looking at this quote, which is perfection is the enemy of action. And this is actually going to be based around Stoicism, which I'm sure you probably have no idea what it is. So I'm going to let my colleague, business coach, English teacher, and aspiring Stoic, Loic, explain. That rhymes well, doesn't it? I'm going to let you explain quickly, like what's going on today. So welcome, Loic.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And
pleasure,
it's a cheers.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Basically, I think in the world of business, things are challenging at all times, and especially these times. And in the world of English, it's always going to be a challenge. So now you've got a mixture of two areas in life that are challenging. And it seems there is almost a philosophy that's been well put together for us for some 2,000 years ago already, which is called Stoicism. And it's been, what I like about it is that it's been very, very well adopted by people in business for the last 10 years. And so where I feel that this is something interesting for English learners is on a couple of levels. The one is it tells you something about life and what is important, and that we will relate back during the discussion, how that works for learners, but also from a connection point of view. If you can imagine yourself throwing on the table some ideas about Stoicism, it's quite an amazing thing, because you'll find that the business leaders today, a lot of them, are very aware of this. It talks about the philosophy, talks about control, it talks about being sort of toughening up in a way. And so when you can throw certain concepts like that on the table, it helps build a relationship at work, particularly with superiors, particularly with bosses, leaders. I mean, this is a philosophy that's been adopted at the highest levels. So logically, what you're looking at is a situation where you can now build a relationship with people you otherwise wouldn't be able to quite connect to. So that's the one angle. And the other angle is how the philosophy can actually help us in our own lives and in our learning and in our business. So I just want to point out one of the basics, because Stoicism as a philosophy is not English. It's not an English philosophy. It's Greek, literally. After all, it's But the point is that some of the core principles deal with things like make the best use of your time is one of them. Master your emotions. And if you think of the situations we put ourselves in as any business person or any language learner in a position where they're not too certain of what to say next, how do you master those emotions which inevitably come up? And develop self-mastery. And at the end of it, that's why we're here. We're trying to develop ourselves, improve our skills, become more competent. And so that's what Stoicism is kind of all about.
Yeah, links right into like modern day leadership and modern day self-improvement. But I really hate that term, self-improvement, because it's just bantered around. But I completely believe that, self-mastery, controlling your emotions, and, making the most of what you've got and making the most of your time and being as productive as possible without going crazy is really important. I mean, people are like, you need to be so productive, but at the same time, you need to enjoy your relaxation time. So that would come back to your self-mastery, like knowing when time to rest and when it's time to work hard and when it's time to, spend some time with the family and, having this balance, which is essential.
Exactly.
Okay. So some great ideas for the 21st century, for the modern world we live in now in business. Do you publish much on this? Or are there resources that people can read where they can learn about this topic further?
Yeah, so obviously I'm in language coaching, but I've got a real liking for this topic. And what I've been doing is reading from a book. And I'll actually come back to that in a moment. I've been reading from a book on a daily basis. So it's a daily meditation. And it's a book with 366 of these daily meditations.
Mm-hmm.
So what started out as almost a bit of a hobby has turned out to be something really interesting, because on Instagram, every day I publish a post, and it's a reading from that day's particular subject.
Mm-hmm.
I've also done some interviews, and I've posted on Facebook, and let me think. Oh, there's a debating session that actually takes place on Instagram every Thursday night with a lady from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And we put an idea on the table, probably a lot deeper than what we're doing tonight. But the funny thing is, we start off with an idea of Stoicism, and inevitably it goes way off into the distance on related, but sort of life ideas. Stories about results, stories about what is a challenge in life, how do you overcome challenges? And everybody has their own ways of dealing with it, their own take on it, their own examples, experiences, and so on.
Nice,
so that's what
nice.
I do. And what I was going to just point out in terms of a daily exercise, which was mentioned to me by one of my students, actually, about 2 weeks ago.
We learn from our students a lot.
We learn from our students.
Yeah.
So the student of mine says, you should just, when you're teaching people, you should consider doing what you did with me with the Daily Stoic, which is this book. I said, well, what do you mean? She says, well, I started reading it. I said, yes. And I followed your advice, and I went public. And basically, I was every morning preparing for this Daily Stoic. Now, the implication for an English language learner is as follows. You are reading, so you're receiving input. You are thinking and processing in English and in your native language, because there are words that you're not familiar with, so you're building your vocabulary. You're making your notes for the next day when you're presenting to an audience of one. But it's on a public platform, so it puts you under a little bit of pressure, which is good.
So the idea is that the student posts it to their social media feed.
No, I was just posting on mine, but then she started doing the same. And the point being that your friends are now watching, potentially.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Yeah. But it's irrelevant, because you're having to prepare for this session. So now you're reading, processing, expanding on vocabulary, you're writing. You're writing your notes for the next morning. And then when the next morning comes, because this was done every morning at 5 o'clock, then what happens is you're now reading out loud in a public format. So you've literally worked on all your skills. And so I thought about it for a moment, and I realized that after a month of doing this, it's actually true. Her language had actually improved, but like a lot. You don't notice it on a day-by-day basis, but when you look back at the original Stoics from the first day, you look at it a month later, wow, what a difference. It's like a daily public speaking exercise. And
that's
so
great.
she says, well, you should tell people they should do this. So I'm telling you, that's what you should do.
Okay, great. All right, I love that. So, I mean, preparing for public speaking, people don't really generally like public speaking. But giving you, and I guess it's also nice that you can reflect on the actual ideas as well.
Yeah.
And you can probably generate some discussion amongst your friends about these ideas.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Okay. So as we mentioned at the beginning, the topic of this, the topic of this is a bit weird, because like we're going to Stoicism, and but I did entitle it "Perfection is the Enemy of Action," and that is a Stoic quote, I believe. We're going to be reading from a Stoic quote. Is that correct?
It's kind of, yeah. So let me break it down like this. So this is what we call the Daily Stoic. It comes from a book by the same name. And the way that it works is that he's broken it down on a day-by-day basis. And perfection is the enemy of action. And that is sort of a one-liner that he'll put as the title of that day's meditation. So I guess it's a one-liner that really makes you think, okay, well, what are you talking about? And there'll be a quote which I thought perhaps you could read that first quote, which is the original quote as it would have been written, 1,000 years ago.
So, all right, I'll go with it. We don't abandon our pursuits because we despair of ever perfecting them. So again, we don't abandon our pursuits because we despair of ever perfecting them. So yeah, now we're going deep into like interpreting the meaning of that. So how would you suggest learners who are dipping their toes, no, into Stoicism, how would you start to try and interpret that?
So the way that I would normally work this, and we've done this, we actually do it on the Daily Stoic when we do it in the mornings, there's an interpretation and so on. So it works like this. You've read the first part. It gives us some food for thought. Then the author tells us what he thinks about everything, which is the part that I will then read. And then we give it some thought. We bring these two ideas together and think, well, okay, have we had experiences like this? Do we have some examples of that? How does it apply in our lives? And the very next time that we have a circumstance, will we react or will we act in a different way because we've now got this new knowledge? Okay, so let me read to you what Ryan Holiday, who's the author of this book, what he has to say. I'm going to read it like this. Psychologists speak of cognitive distortions, exaggerated thinking patterns that have a destructive impact on the life of the patient. One of the most common is known as all or nothing thinking, also referred to as splitting. Examples of this include thoughts like, if you're not with me, you're against me. So-and-so is all good or bad. Because this wasn't a complete success, it is a total failure. This sort of extreme thinking is associated with depression and frustration. And I think that last one about being a total failure plays on our minds a lot.
Yeah, exactly. People are like, it wasn't perfect. So it was ruined. It was like
exactly.
my birthday party was a disaster. It's like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Yeah, yeah. And often it's in the eye of the beholder, no? Like it's often Correct. Like the person who organized that event or that, they're like, it was a complete disaster. And everyone's like, we had the best time. But they have got this manic idea of perfection in their mind that they believe that it was a complete disaster. Whereas, or not they think it's a failure because it wasn't perfect. Whereas everyone else had a fantastic time and was like, yeah, it was the best party I've been to in a long time.
100%.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting from an English language learning as well as business anyway. And I think there are two lessons there. From a business point of view, I would throw something on the table to the effect that done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
So it means that if you need to launch a new product, if you need to launch a new program, make sure you've covered the basics and just go for it. Because if you're waiting for something to be perfect, you'll never get to it. And as a language, it's the same.
Yeah, true. This is a great philosophical debate, though. I love this. We could go so deep into this because the level of done is therefore a point of discussion as well.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I could be quite lazy and just like, or like really manic and like I just want to get things done and like I'm going to do it and like I could get something out really quickly because I think it's fine, and then it's a complete piece of crap, to put it bluntly. Whereas you're like, no, but you said that done is better than perfect. Whereas someone else who's like, no, done for me is like borderline perfection. So yeah, I mean, it's really, really great discussion about what is or where does someone fall in to like this sphere of like, okay, if it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be done, what is done and what is compared to perfect?
Oh, that by itself would be philosophy. But now what I'm thinking is, and I often say that at work, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good. And I've used that in my own language classes as well, because what happens is that some students tend to get caught up on the grammar and the sentence structure and the pronunciation. And so their fluency as a result actually drops.
Yeah, I agree completely.
And they were going for fluency, but now it's not happening.
Yeah.
And which creates frustration, of course.
Yeah. And a sense of this like self-consciousness and like, and missed opportunities. I always say that to my students. Like every time that you back away from an opportunity to speak and interact with people, even if they're non-natives, it doesn't matter, but you're in a situation where you need to speak English. Like you need to embrace that situation. And, you're not going to speak perfect English. So what? Who cares? As long as you're, legibly, as long as you can be understood, it's great.
Yeah.
And every time every opportunity that you get is going to build on the last opportunity, and over time you'll improve. And I said this, I think, in last week's episode, episode 129, about improving your communication skills. Like, you should cherish your accent. You should cherish that you don't speak perfect English, because people will be like, "Oh, that's so cute. I just love the way that they say that word." And whereas you're like, "Oh my God, I sound terrible when I say that." And you know, the way that native people speak in English is like, we sing and we have this, we got that undulating tone that goes up and down, up and down, up and down, because we use we have this like wavy motion that we speak, like blah, 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 blah. And when non-native people, they think that if I speak like that, I'll sound ridiculous. Like, why would I do that? So trying to be perfect in your mind is the enemy of good, no?
Yeah, because it reduces also your fluency. I mean, I've got students that are technically worse than the other student in their language, and yet they come across with a lot more confidence and fluency, purely because they're not letting that stop them.
Yeah.
And they're happy that you correct them later on, but they just want to have a flow, want to continue with the conversation. And so also the approach that we use in our classes is to learn not just the words, but also the language in chunks. Words that are grouped together frequently, that go together. And so you can listen to the flow of the language rather than focusing on the exact structure and pronunciation of the individual words. I mean, the idea of accent reduction also pops up quite regularly. And I say to them, listen, you speak Italian. People expect you to have an accent.
Exactly.
It makes you charming. If you try and reduce that, you'll sound like an English speaker who's not very good.
Exactly.
But you're Italian.
Yeah. Like, people love Italians who speak English.
Listen, if you've got a foreign accent, it's actually working in your favor, provided that you say the basics correctly. And there are obviously instances where if you mispronounce a word, it'll be completely misunderstood. However, that's where I correct them. The other 80% actually adds to your character, which means you've got more impact. So it actually, you got to turn it on its head and realize that this is going to give you an advantage in the workplace, because it makes you unique, memorable.
Exactly. Memorable. That's a key word, my friend. Memorable. You will be someone that stands out, like, oh my God, remember Mauricio's? He was amazing. Like, oh, that guy, he's so handsome. And that accent, wow. And it's like, everyone loves this guy now. And Maria from Spain, wow, she's got this beautiful olive skin and this gorgeous Spanish accent when she speaks. Oh, amazing. So, like, native English people love that. They cherish, they love this diversity in the workplace, these accents. And it definitely makes you much more memorable. I mean, I say it to my students. I'm like, you know that I can speak Spanish and Catalan. Do I speak it perfectly? No. Do I care? No. Did I used to care? Yes, but now I don't. I say to them, look, there's two things. There's like exam English, if you're trying to pass an exam, and then there's like functional English. And I say to my students, like, can you sell your products and services or yourself with your English? And they say, yeah, I do really well. And then that's fine. Do you have perfect precision and put the correct prepositions after these verbs? No. But does it affect the actual understanding on the part of the other person? No, they understand completely what you mean. And a lot of that happens here in Spain. Like, for some reason, Spanish people feel that their English is actually bad, but it's not. They actually speak really well, and they've spent many years in academies, and they've spent a long time trying to learn English. Whereas I've got friends in Germany who are have just started English when they were like about 8 or 9, and they've spent less time officially in academies, or they've just learned at the school, and they just speak confidently, like making a lot of mistakes. I'm like, God, man, like, I'm surprised how many mistakes these guys make, but like, not a single problem. The confidence is carried through, the fluency comes with it, and the mistakes are there. And surprisingly, they actually make typical mistakes that my Spanish students make, which is quite interesting. So it's not necessarily related to like, oh, you speak a Latin-based language or you don't. It's like, no, So, I mean, I completely agree with you on all of the points you've mentioned so far. What else can we say about Stoicism and perfectionism and you know, I mean, this topic's evolved now quite a lot from
and that's
beginning.
Typically what happens on a Thursday night, which is quite interesting, because you and I were sharing a picture earlier and that's with one of my students, and normally on a Thursday night we have this debate, but it seems I'm having the same debate with somebody different. But you know, I think that switching the focus, and we're still talking English here, switching the focus away from perfectly speaking, perfectly listening, understanding every word, and focusing more on communicating. Because ultimately that's what we're doing it for, isn't it? We want to communicate. We don't actually want to speak English per se. We want to be able to communicate and really exchange ideas, concepts, exchange ideas about culture, experiences with people who speak English. And it's the most widely spoken language in the world. So it's probably a good idea to adopt this language.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of Stoicism, it's a whole life operating system in terms of the way that you see yourself fitting into the world. So the Stoics had kind of three pillars. First, logic, which works around reasoning. So there's a concept of, and we're not going to go into it because that'll take us all night. But
of course, because humans are not logical. We're rational beings. We think we are. Okay, moving along.
So you've got that, and basically it revolves around what is in your control and what is out of your control. And so also from a language learning, you know, understand who you are, what you can do, and don't worry too much about the rest because you'll acquire it as you go along. Same in a conversation. You know, you get started, and once the ball is rolling, it's rolling. The second one is physics stroke nature. They called it nature at the time, but really they were talking about physics and how things work. And realizing that really in the bigger scheme of things, we are not that significant. We are not as important as we think we are. We are just like a little speck, you know, a grain of sand on a very big beach. And so therefore, you don't need to be as self-conscious as you are. None of us do. We all do from time to time, but it's useful to remember.
I say that to a lot of people when we start talking about the universe and philosophy and where are we in the world, which is a great conversation question for your students, because then they start to really surprise you. Like we're literally like a little bleep in the continuum of time, because you know the universe has been around for so long. We're already dead, basically. We're already dead, because like we literally in the grand continuum of time, we'll barely register how many hundreds of thousands or millions, if we can say, years that the human race has been on the planet. So I mean, stop being so self-conscious and having this air of importance about you, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Well, exactly. So most things don't matter. If you're having an argument with somebody on a Friday, by Monday morning, it's all blown over. No one will remember. If you
like, what were we fighting about? What were we fighting about? You don't even remember.
It wasn't that important, you know? If you left a line out of your speech, or you meant to say a word, the only person who knows that is you.
Exactly. Nice.
For example, you know. So they had these pillars of thinking, which become very, very useful. And the one today, obviously, is all about, you know, do you abandon something because it's just not perfect? No, you pursue, you go, you continue, you move on. You know, you don't let obstacles be the thing that holds you back. In fact, and there is such a thing as the obstacle is the way, and it's in this book as well. And there are a lot of things that one can learn from here.
And the actual idea of perception is a construct of your mind, because you know, who's to say that what you believe is perfect?
Another one of my students told me something. He says, well, reality is what it is. You can't change that. You can only change your eyes. Now, he's Italian, so he says, puoi solo cambiare gli occhi. It means you can only change your eyes. But the point being that you change the frame of reference. You look at it, same situation in a different way, and suddenly you see solutions where you could only see problems previously. Look, we all fall into the trap. But again, it's useful to remember.
Wow, my friend. What, is there another pillar?
As a matter of fact, there is. And it's the last one. It's the pillar of ethics. And then they break it down into what is ethics, and they look at the virtues, and they consider concepts around justice and courage and wisdom and so on. And one can, again, go deep into that.
Deep, yeah.
But essentially, it's ethics, logic, and physics.
I've got one rule about ethics, really. And it's my first rule. It's the rule I run my business on, and it's a rule I run my household on. And it's very simple. The first rule is respect.
That's
you know what is right and wrong in your heart and your mind. So be respectful to everyone and everything. Like, if you don't respect the chair, if you're a student and you're like drawing on the wall, you're not respecting my wall. You're not respecting the wall, and you're not respecting the owner of that wall and their property.
Everything related.
Everything relates back to just being respectful. And I think if people were respectful, genuinely respectful at all times, and then we'd be a lot better off, because a lot of the problems we have with the planet is that we're not respectful. But yeah, that's the first rule I run my household on and my business on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think if we start from a position of respect, then it's a lot easier to do to implement other things related to ethics.
It is.
Wow. Yeah. God, man, this is pretty heavy.
I mean, one can work with that. Yeah, you can. I mean, we're just scratching the surface here, but essentially, don't take yourself too seriously, and you should be fine. Yeah,
but do your best at all times.
Exactly.
Do the right thing. Do your best. Work hard. Don't shy away from challenges. So that's great. I love it. My mind's like be blown out. So awesome. Well, that's amazing. I think that's a great little introduction to what is Stoicism, and those 3 pillars is something that people can look into. You've got the book by Ryan Holiday.
And you should read it every day aloud.
You should read it every day aloud.
Your friends on Facebook.
Yeah, and practice your pronunciation. That's great. And so, Loic, I've asked you this before, but where can people connect with you? How can they get on to learn more about Stoicism? What can we fill in my listeners so that that they can.
So, in terms of this, let's look at it in 2 different places. The one is facebook.com/speak proper English. All one word. And then the other one is instagram.com/speak proper English. Okay. That's it. You look for Speak Proper English on those 2 platforms and just connect directly with me, enjoy some of the material, make comments, share,
Great. And every Thursday you're running a live session.
Thursday. Yeah, absolutely. So there is interesting because it's on Instagram and it's on another lady's channel that we have these discussions. If they're on my Instagram channel, they'll find out about it because I normally publish a story on that. And it's every Thursday at pretty much the same time. Okay.
Well, if we may, let's dive into some more of these topics in the future, because it sounds like we can have some pretty deep and thoughtful discussion.
Night in between.
In between. Yeah. Great. Well, that's been great, my friend. There you have it, everybody. If you're interested in learning some more about Stoicism, then check out Loic's channel. And remember, the lesson from today is that don't go for perfection, just go for continuous improvement. And that is something that, with this mindset, you'll always be working towards improving your English, but without this self-conscious barrier. And you'll put yourself into situations maybe where you're going to be taking advantage of all those opportunities where you can speak and participate. And those are the opportunities that are going to build on each other, one after the other. And eventually, over time, you'll have this improvement and progress. And you'll speak proper English. Okay, my friends. Well, that's it from us today. Thank you, Loic, for sharing your insights and your knowledge on this topic. And I look forward to having me. No, it's been a pleasure. I look forward to having you again soon. I hope everyone's had a great summer. Thanks again. And that's it for this week of The Art of Business English. Take care.
Enjoy your week.
You too, guys. Take care. Bye for now.